You have found Why We Are Christians. My name is Kent Philpott, and next to me is...
I'm Katie Philpott.
This is Katie Philpott, my wife. And what happened, we happened to have a situation where our guest could not do it. And not wanting to cancel the reservation for the studio, we came up with something else. So we're going to talk about why we do what we do.
And the we here is actually Miller Avenue Baptist Church in Mill Valley, California, rather than just Kent and Katie, because Kent and Katie cannot do 3 television shows and a publishing business and an outreach for this and that and the other thing, and alone.
So it's a broad enterprise, and so we're going to talk about the essential mission and message. And we have a mission, we have a message.
Yes.
Of Miller Avenue Baptist Church, Mill Valley, California, Marin County, if you wanted to know. Here we go. So, Katie, start us off with the early starting of television.
Well, of course, I wasn't there. That was you. And it was way back before I was even a Christian. It was back in 1984. I know this because you've told us many times that it started in a place that wasn't even a television studio. It was, I think, the educational building for one of the schools in the area. And you did the Bible study, verse by verse, and you've been doing it ever since. So that was 1984. And it was reel-to-reel or beta version filming?
Beta, it was a 3/4-inch tape. And I remember having to splice, had this machine, a little machine, and you'd wind it up, and you'd splice the tape.
Literally with a razor blade?
Yes. They had it fixed up where you didn't have to actually hold a knife, but you could slice it, put them together, and then after a period of time, they went to VHS and moved out of that elementary school, by the way, not very far away from where we live. We passed that school.
Santa Venetia area.
In Santa Venetia area. And so that was the television work. And I used my own camera.
And you used your own camera.
And
Very
eventually.
interesting. So now we have moved from there. You moved to the Viacom building in San Rafael. Viacom was changed to Comcast. Comcast then decided that they wanted out of the community television business. The government said, okay, but you have to capital fund a nonprofit organization to take this over, as was happening elsewhere. And so the Community Media Center of Marin, we have been members of since they opened their doors here, which was good 8 years ago or more.
Wonderful facility. We love being here, and we're
and
a
it's
nice
digital.
Studio.
And it's HD.
Yeah. We usually have to break it down to MP4.
Okay, and let's talk about what it is that we film. We have 3 different shows.
Now,
the first we just talked about.
Now, I want to say a little bit more about the Bible study.
Yes.
What it is, the emphasis there is discipleship. It's teaching Christians what the Bible is, what the Bible says, and let them come to their own conclusions about what it says.
Are you saying that we don't want non-Christians to watch the TV
show? No. A lot of non-Christians too, as a matter of fact, we've discovered over the years.
Yes, we walk down the street probably at least every other time we are out in public. Someone stops us when they see you and say, oh, you're that guy on TV. You know, I watch your show.
Yeah, it's funny. I've found people from all kinds of different denominations, people that never have attended a church, who regularly watch this program. It's amazing. I love to do it. We're doing the parables of Jesus now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is what this would have been.
The Why We Are Christians.
And that is an evangelistic program.
Yes.
Now, evangelism
what does that mean?
Evangelism means to tell other people the message of Jesus, as you know. That's called The EV in evangelist, EV comes from the Greek
Good.
diphthong,
Yeah.
epsilon
EU,
upsilon,
yeah, right.
which means good. And then the story, the rest of it is the word angel, which means message. So it's a good message. We say the good news. And so that's what we tend to do. We want to know how it is a person became a believer in Jesus, what happened next, what's going on, what they're doing.
And I like the fact that we have people of all kinds of different ages, different races, different nationalities, different denominational backgrounds, different times in their lives when they came to faith in Jesus. Some can hardly remember a time in their lives when they were not believers in Jesus. Others, it was maybe only 10 years ago when they were 40 years old. I mean, I just think we've had everyone from probably early 20s into 80s.
And we can do it by Skype. We've Skyped people in Africa. Where else? Of course, Europe.
Yes, Germany and
various
England.
parts of the United States.
All over the United States.
Yeah.
Right.
So the programs by Skype aren't as sharp, as clear as we'd like.
Oh, well.
But they work out. They're a little bit problematic. And the one we were scheduling for today was a Skype from my dear friend in Mobile, Alabama.
Right. We will get him 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks. And then the third program is the Imam and the Pastor.
Ooh, the Imam. What's an Imam doing on a show run by Christians? Oh.
Well, this is a very special guy, Imam Abu Qadir al-Amin. And the local Northern California Islamic ulama gave him to us to be a part of the program. Enjoy him very much. We only have 2 more programs with him, and then
Yes.
we're going to go to either...
How many will that make? I think
18 programs.
18 programs.
By the way, the Why We Are Christian programs, we filmed about 110 so far.
Oh, yeah. We've done a lot of these.
So, but the Imam and the Pastor, the idea is we talk about our faith. We fully disagree. He and I disagree.
Well, there are places where you agree.
We have many points of agreement.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
Even on who is Jesus, he recognizes how miraculous his birth was, for instance. It's just that when it comes to what is the core issue for us, which is his crucifixion, taking our sin upon him, and then his burial, real burial, and then a resurrection and ascension, they skip all over, completely over the important part, which is he died to take our sin.
Right. So we have our differences, we have our agreements, but we talk together, we become friends. Following will be programs like the Rabbi and the Pastor, the Priest
Yes,
and the Pastor,
yes.
the Wiccan
Yeah.
and the Pastor, the Shaman, the Pastor,
If we can, on the Zen, the Zen master.
the Zen Master
Right.
and the Pastor.
Those will all be very interesting, and I hope our audience will be waiting for us to do them.
Yes, so we make this available on YouTube.
And so what's the main point in having shows like the Imam and the Pastor?
Well, on the one hand, there's an educational element, there's an informational element, but there's also the fact that so many people think all religions are just all the same.
Right. All paths lead to God.
They all are on the same path to some kind of deity. And one of the purposes of the program, I think, is to show that as maybe a popular saying, but it's absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
It's not true.
It has
It's
no
not
logic
accurate.
to it.
It's not accurate. And those of us who maybe get lumped into that, oh, well, you guys are all on the same path. Well, we know we're not.
Right.
And most of the time we realize, I'm not going to bother to explain it to you because you won't want to know. But so
It's very unpopular.
This program presents the reality that it's not all the same kind of stuff.
And yet, we can be friendly. We can even be friends.
We could be friends. We don't have to be hating each other.
No.
Don't have to be at war with each other. That's our television work. And we hope to keep all three of these programs going.
Yes.
In terms of the Bible study, I want to do a series called The Paradoxes of the Bible. And there are
That was my favorite.
at least a dozen primary great paradoxes that unless you understand it,
Yes.
the paradoxes, the Bible will not make sense to you.
Can you remember a few of them that you'll be doing? I think it's going to be very interesting to have a glimpse into your mind about which ones you're going to do.
Well, we're going to do one. Jesus is the God-man. He's God and man at once. That's probably the primary paradoxes. Another one is the Bible itself. It's written, we call it the written Word of God, yet there is a living Word of God, who is Jesus himself. We have a paradox that God is the creator of both good and allowed evil. Those two.
That's the one that most people stumble over to the point of walking away.
That's true. The Why We Are Christians is probably our most difficult program, both to set up and to edit.
And because we're depending on a guest to show up and to kind of be as advertised.
Yeah. I love the Imam and The Pastor program. We only do one filming a month. We film 2 programs a month, but I very much enjoying them. I'm looking forward to what's coming. Now we've got a second part to the program, and was there something else, Katie, you wanted to say?
No. I was actually looking down and seeing, we've got so many other outreaches and other things that our church does and is involved in.
You know, I was a little reluctant to do this, I tell you, and I mentioned it to Katie as we were driving over here today. I don't want this to sound boastful. Like, wow, look at what we do. Aren't we wonderful? No, we consider ourselves servants. And we happen to have been placed in circumstances that have allowed for us to do this. The public access, the television work. When I was first a Christian, for most of my Christian life, this was not available.
Right.
And all of a sudden, in 1984, I'd already been in the ministry for about 20 years. This all of a sudden come up.
Well, you had your own medium earlier in life in your ministry of preaching on the streets in the Haight, Ashbury, during the Jesus People movement.
That's true.
So our other outreaches.
Okay, now, other outreaches, I put them down, I think.
And it's not like other churches don't do these things, but I think, let me just say that I think it is significant that media is available, be it the television, be it podcasting, and we do turn your Bible study sermons on this show into podcasting.
Now, we just found out that some 10,000 people
have downloaded. We have had since November of 2017. We have had over 10,300 downloads of your podcasts.
Wow.
Which
I
very
didn't even
much
know that.
surprised me.
I had no idea.
Very much surprised me. So what we're saying is that the fact that a very small church such as ours, and we are small, can have access to this kind of media, creating television. We'll talk about other media that we do in another show, but the fact that we are able to reach out through website, through online journal, through online blogging, through online.
Have even started being a tweeter.
All of this kind of media is now makes much smaller ministry foundations like ours able to have more than, let's say 50 people involved?
Okay, we want to look to the outreaches. The oldest one is Divorce Recovery and Loss Workshop.
And you started that when?
Started in January in 1986.
Yeah.
There was a lady named Sherry Copen here in Marin County who was a member of Marin Covenant Church in San Rafael, and we had my associate minister who had been through it. Mm-hmm. Loved it, brought it here, and he ended up becoming the pastor of Lucas Valley Community Church in San Rafael. And we do 4 8-week workshops every year. We're just starting a new one in 6 days, a week from yesterday, a new 8-weeker. We use Bruce Fisher's When Relationships End.
That's the subtitle. It's rebuilding, basically.
Rebuilding
When relationships end.
We love it. Both of us have been divorced and remarried.
Yeah.
And so we understand what it's like to go through that.
Yep.
And we just love it. We have so many friends out in the county who have been through this program. Mm-hmm. And we remain friends with many of them.
Yes, yeah.
And although we used to have, we number anywhere from 30 to 50 people come in attendance. Mm-hmm. In the last few years, maybe 5-6 years, it's been much smaller than that.
Right.
But however small, it's very significant. Yeah. And
we hear all the time from people who are alumni of this program that, quote, "You guys saved my life." I mean, when I first heard someone say that, I thought, no. But I've heard it from at least 3 people. And things of that nature said about, if I hadn't done this, I would not be where I'm at now, or recovered, which is, of course, what we're hoping for is recovery. That it just surprises me how influential the workshop is in people's lives.
And we decided from the very beginning not to make it Christian-oriented.
Yeah.
We want people who are atheists, who are Jewish, who are Buddhist, who are whatever. Mm-hmm. We don't care. Everybody's welcome.
Right. And we have not discriminated on the basis of heterosexual and homosexual as well.
Yeah, we'll have people that break up from all kinds of things. And the lifetime fee is $50.
And it's been that way for many, many years. So
we
barely pay for our books with that.
We barely pay for the books.
Because some people don't pay at all. They can't. I mean, divorce is such a traumatic experience, and not just emotionally, sometimes financially is the hardest part of it, where people absolutely don't even know where they're going to be living next week.
That's true. So we do that. It's a wonderful thing. I just love it.
Now, some of our let's just give a few of our topics. So the first night we do introduction and the idea of denial. And then rejection and guilt.
Rejection and guilt.
That's when we discuss who's the dumper and the dumpee, and we have to laugh about those terms, and we always say, well, we only use them because Bruce Fisher uses them, but everybody certainly understands the notion of dumper and dumpee. Except nowadays, I think that there are more kind of mutual decisions.
Mm-hmm. So then we talk about fear, we talk about anxiety, mm-hmm. we talk about unhealthy relationships, how to recognize them, how to look at how to put together what is a healthy and good relationship.
How to the letting go process.
How you're letting go. It's the loss cycle.
Oh, definitely.
Which is typical to so many. But on the stress cycle, divorce is number 2 behind only the loss of a child. Hey, we did 1969. Dr. Francis DeBose stood up in Golden Gate Seminary Chapel and said, we have an opening for 2 people to go out to San Quentin Prison as volunteer. I raised my hand. I was out there from 69 to 1972 till the George Jackson shootout.
Oh, boy.
Most people won't remember that.
Not anymore.
Many won't even been alive at that point. Mm-hmm. Then I came back in 1985 with Chaplain Earl Smith, and for 13 years did cell-to-cell ministry. And then in 97, I was asked to take over the baseball program along with my old friend Dan Jones. And for 16 years did the baseball program, and then we started.
And our church actually went in on about once a month Sunday evening for a worship service with the inmates in the Protestant chapel.
Garden Protestant Chapel.
That was actually fun.
That was. You preached it there.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've actually sat in the third base dugout during baseball games,
Yes.
Katie. And we started a 8-man flag football. My son Vernon took that over. Started softball teams also, and I'm back. I got kicked out of the prison due to no fault of my own. Got caught up in the gang rackets, as we call it, and I'm now
at least
back.
you're finding out about some gang racket.
Yeah.
Which they didn't like you to find out about.
I was at the prison last night. I'll be there Saturday night again. We're filming, by the way, Thursday afternoon. And back in doing baseball. I'm an old-time baseball guy, high school baseball. Started high school baseball 2004. And so anyway, the San Quentin ministry is a very interesting one. Last night at the game was over. We always have a sermon on the mound. Not sermon on the mount, a sermon on the mound. We got to the mound.
Who does the sermon?
Well, a couple people, but this guy that I don't going to say his name. The guy he's a white guy, tattoos, obviously longtime gang meth guy, and this guy has the fabulous prayers. Oh, you wouldn't believe.
So
he's our best players, our shortstop, and won't mention his name, but the San Quentin Prison ministry goes on and on and on. I've written 3 books about 3 baseball seasons, soon to be released.
Oh, well, we'll see.
Okay, Katie, tell us about HUG.
HUG. Okay, so Hope Upward Group. That's HUG, HUG. Thank you, Andrea, for coming up with that one. What HUG is that we are a support group. It's just in its infant stages. We're not going to give up if we have 1, 2, 3 people coming, because it will gain momentum. Because what we've found is that mental illness is a big issue. Most individuals in this country have to deal with at least an episode of it in themselves during their lifetimes. Some people have it chronically. Now, the close relatives, family, friends, colleagues of those who are dealing with it chronically are also involved. Their lives are impacted quite a bit as well. And sometimes they do not have as much of the resources that we'll call the peer, the patient, the one who's personally in the illness. The person who's in the illness often has more resources. They might have a social worker, a psychiatrist, hospital backup. There's a number of things that they might have, also a built-in support group through a hospital or an outpatient kind of scenario. But often the relatives have little or nothing, and sometimes they're even shut out due to the privacy laws from even knowing much about their relative's condition, what medications they're taking. Not always, but sometimes they're kind of left dangling, and yet they're seen as the caregiver often. And so they need to have some place to let off steam. They need to have some place that they know if they do let off steam that it's confidential, and that there are other people there that have gone through and are going through the same thing. And that's a very important kind of group to be part of, is people experiencing what you're experiencing. Well
said, Katie. And like you said, starting small. we had the opportunity to be part of a wonderful national organization called the National Alliance of Mental Illness. We went through a program there, and we learned a great deal.
Yes.
And we decided we want to be a part of that kind of outreach. Okay.
One more thing about that is that if it was that NAMI, that's what we call that group you just talked about, were the only resource, there would be no Christian aspect to it. The reason that we wanted to start our own support group at the church is because there is a spiritual dimension to it. And without God in one's life, and without the faith that we have in Jesus as our guide, as our mentor, as our caregiver ourselves, we wouldn't, without us having that resource, I mean, more than a resource, we wouldn't have a leg to stand on ourselves. And we think that a support group for these situations is much better with Jesus in it than without it.
Well said, Katie.
Sorry.
Thank you. Last is respecting our elders. I've been at Miller Avenue for 34 years, and after there about 3 years, we started into picking up food at the local Safeway in Mill Valley and at Whole Foods.
Yes.
And so I've been doing that for about 30 years. Eventually became involved with a larger organization called Respecting Your Elders. Mm-hmm. Is it your or our?
Our.
Respecting Our Elders. And we're part of that now. We have been for 25 years, something long period of time. And so we go and pick up food and bring it to the fellowship hall at Miller Avenue Church. And people come in and pick it up and take it around and all sorts of things. So there's so many things that individual Christians do. Like there's 3 people sitting over here in the control room.
Yes.
Very important ministry. None of this television would happen without them. And there's so many other things that go on a weekly kind of a basis, day-by-day basis. We are part of we're part of a part, okay. And we enjoy doing it, the fellowship with other people, the opportunity to be servants. That's the thing. Like Bob Dylan said, you're going to serve somebody.
Yes.
It may be the Lord, it may be the devil, but you're going to serve somebody. All right, you've been watching Why We Are Christians, and there's going to be a part 2 to this particular focus. So long.